Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 247.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm Steve. Who else is here?
I'm Ron.
I'm John.
You all passed the test. You are all correct.
Yay!
And we're doing this episode today, I think, really to kind of like maybe recap the Oscars or talk about overall reactions to the Oscars, talk about some of the winners, some of the losers, and just put Movie Schmovie's thoughts out into the world, because most of the trades are waiting for our feedback before they run their final pieces.
Oh yeah.
For the Oscar coverage for the year that was 2019.
Ronald, you sound like a man with strong opinions in your belly. How do you think the Oscars went this year?
So I kind of had feelings about Parasite and how much I liked it, and I was very surprised at how receptive the Academy was about it. It's just shocking, to be honest with you. I love that movie, but I had no idea that the Academy would love it as much as they did. Which is really cool, man.
I kind of felt the same way. Like Parasite kind of went down the middle of being a movie that is artistic and is not the sort of movie that would get made in America, frankly. And then on top of that, it's very easy to get into, and the story really grabs you. So I think that's what makes it special.
It's kind of been the just magic movie for the better part of the year. Back, I guess earlier in the summer, back when it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, it was in 2019. Wait, is that right? Yeah, 2019.
What year is it? Where are we?
Wait, yeah, what year am I in right now? Yeah, that's right. 2019 at Cannes. So that it's just like so many firsts for this movie and in the industry, and for Hollywood and the Oscars and even the SAG Awards and the Golden Globes. It's just been a movie that people have been kind of championing all year, and the movie's like a massive success at the box office, not only in its home country, but also since it opened in the States. It's like the movie has been slowly making money since it came out, in the fall and or late summer, early fall, and then it has continued to do so through the Oscar run. And I don't know that there's probably in recent memory that there's been a movie that almost, I wouldn't say unanimously, but like anytime you watch coverage for the Oscars, like whether they were talking to celebrities or talking to critics or just entertainment reporters, whatever it was, like, I don't know the last time you really got such a consistent answer from people when asked, like, what was your favorite movie this year? Or like, what movie are you pulling for at the Oscars or whatever? Like, so many people were just praising this film. And not only the film, I mean, the film is a great movie, which, I've rewatched it since we did our top 10 of the year. And I mean, it was much better for me experiencing it on the second viewing, really being able to sit down and enjoy the movie. So this is a movie that definitely jumped into my top 10 just, after a second viewing. But it's just wild to see such an accessible movie be a foreign language film, and a filmmaker who is basically like a fan of cinema. So, he's so outward about his love of film, and he's just so unfiltered, and like that personality of his, like, just kind of shine through the whole awards campaign. And you just couldn't stop hearing about people talking about their love of not only the movie, which is standalone great on its own, but of him, which is like such it's a good pairing, because it doesn't feel like just this movie won an Oscar for Best Picture, and he ended up winning 4 awards, and it's just like it's like a real arrival in America for this filmmaker on a big scale. This is somebody who's made a lot of great movies that, people that watch a lot of movies know about already. But, to see all these articles coming out about his filmography and like what to watch after you watch Parasite, and like the fact that you can watch Memories of Murder now on YouTube for free. It's just like there's such a swell for this filmmaker that it almost feels like the entrance of like a voice in film that's going to be around for a long time and is going to have a lot of influence on, filmmakers throughout the world, not just in South Korea, which is amazing.
No, I agree with all that. Do you guys think that the fact that it won Best International Film and Best Picture, is that as unusual as I think it is? I've always felt like historically, when a movie has won Best International feature, it's like that means that they're not going to give the best picture to it.
Right.
Right.
And I think it might be the first time that I personally picked a number one movie that won Best Picture. Steve, you're the one who keeps the spreadsheet. Maybe you could run a comparison. But I think, I felt this weird sort of personal attachment to that movie, almost like I voted for a candidate that was elected president or something like that. But I think the reason that it cuts through the cynicism I feel about the Oscars in general is precisely what you said, Steve, that it was like this coming out party for Bong Joon-ho. He seems so delighted and so ready for the moment, and he's got this great wit about it, and he's got this little smile on his face. He just kind of seems like you said, one of those people who now is kind of a household name, or he's like a meme factory kind of, and it's I think he might be the sort of person that can survive that transition and probably just do some amazing stuff with more access and more budgets and all that stuff. But he's been doing great so far.
For sure.
That's like a bright spot for me in the middle of a situation where sometimes it's hard for me to get that excited about the awards, especially when there are so many deserving things that aren't in contention.
Right. So what you just said about like the international film, or what was foreign language film, and the best picture, like, no, that's not normal, and this is like a first, that a foreign language film has won Best Picture, and it's just, or I don't know, like, it's just amazing that the Oscars kind of felt so different this year, and it's kind of crazy to think about, like, had 1917, won some of the major awards, like, some people had predicted it to. I really enjoyed that movie also, but it just, that feels like a pretty standard movie to win these awards. So, to kind of go from a win last year for Green Book, which, kind of feels that way, to go to a movie like this that is so exciting and people just seem to be rallying around so much. It's just, whatever you feel about the Oscar broadcast in general is one thing, but like just the outcome of the awards ceremony is just that movie having the presence that it did, and making its presence felt so much when, they went up and accepted their awards, and you could just feel the audience just completely swelling every time that name was announced. It's amazing, and it's a really good sign maybe of things to come, hopefully, for the Academy, and maybe what can be made and put out in American cinemas. And I think that's just exciting, and that's my big takeaway from watching them accept all their awards and the excitement around them after this awards ceremony.
Yeah,
it's definitely really promising. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen next year, and what sort of international films will be up for awards. It's really interesting, especially since this one was so different than any of the other films in the category. It's like a good combination of drama and comedy, and gets very serious towards the end. I think it's super promising because there's a lot of international films that kind of have genre bending sort of presentation. So I'm curious.
Yeah, isn't it interesting, Ronald, how many people, when they talk about this movie, they almost universally say, I don't know what to call it. It's a comedy, but it's also kind of a horror movie, and then it turns into like a critique of society, but it's also like a family drama. That tone shifting, I think, is something that he as a director does well, or at least he does it a lot. Like in Snowpiercer, it was a similar thing. You went from almost like heightened, almost comedic stuff to really grim stuff. And I did hear something kind of interesting. This might be just conspiracy theory stuff. Have you heard that Snowpiercer was supposedly kind of shut out in some way, that Harvey Weinstein pulled some strings and used his clout to kind of stifle that movie's chances stateside,
Yeah, I mean, it's out there, like, that there are so initially the battle over final cut for the movie, once Weinstein Company picked up the distribution rights for it, he wanted a nice chunk of the movie to be cut and was basically demanding that there be more scenes or sequences with Chris Evans' characters in the film. But I think ultimately, they kind of fought over it, and I can't remember exactly how the distribution ended up happening, but I know they both, like, basically Weinstein took a cut that he made, or whoever he helps made, they test screened basically both cuts, like his and Bong's cut of the movie, and Bong scored higher. So, they basically were able to go with that. So he was able to keep that theatrical cut. But ultimately, Weinstein kind of screwed him because he removed the distribution from Weinstein Company down to that Radius division that they had. It was like a step down in terms of like the distribution. It was like Radius TWC or whatever it was called. It didn't get a nationwide release like it was supposed to, but I mean, ultimately, he basically like kind of chastised the movie by removing it from a nationwide release, bumping it down to Radius. But I think ultimately that's where Bong Joon-ho met somebody that's now with Neon, who ultimately led to, working with them for Parasite. So, while that movie may have suffered from it, I think, ultimately it created a relationship that, led him to a distribution house that really treated Parasite the way, it should have been treated. And from that point on, like, there's some really great interviews with him on some podcasts that I'm sure we all listen to, where he basically is like, from that point on, it's like, I knew I had to work in that I have final cut of the movie and all that good stuff. So it's like, it's a learning experience for him, obviously. But something that obviously netted a lot of good results for him for the movies that followed, including Okja on Netflix, and now Parasite. So it's kind of the typical bullshit story of Harvey, and his demands on how movies need to end up, and him knowing how people are, and whatever. But it's just ultimately you're just happy that they ended up making the movie that they did, I guess.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
The Host is actually one of my favorite movies of his. I think we may have talked about it a couple years ago, maybe. But yeah, The Host is definitely one of my favorites that he's done.
Yeah, that's an amazing, like, little creature movie. I remember when I used to be at Allied, like, I think it was Magnolia that put that out, maybe. But I was one of the studios that I handled here in Baltimore. So, like, I remember being able to see that movie early and, like, show that to film critics and everybody, just being, like, crazy about it. So it was definitely, like, a exciting time, like, when I was in my, early in my career working for that marketing company, that I actually got to, like, work on that movie. So knowing who he was then, and just knowing that it would be, he'd be somebody that eventually people would know a lot more about.
That's another one that is such a cross-genre thing, because you kind of think you know what it is based on the log line or just the back of the box or whatever, and then when you see it, it's this different kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like, it has weird elements mixed in with what would be a pretty cool monster movie if that's all it was. But I remember thinking that was, it's one of those movies where just the unexpected kind of like, oh, who dies and who ends up being more of a main character and what the real story is.
Yeah.
Are there any particular losses that really stung you guys, or that you thought people should have gotten that they didn't get? I didn't have much of a strong opinion about anything in that way, but I'm sure that there are some hurt feelings out there. Who got robbed?
I thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood should have gotten more love. For what category, I don't know, but I just definitely think in general it should have got more love.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt winning is kind of incredible, though. But yeah, besides that, I just think overall the movie was pretty great, and it should have gotten more love.
No, I think if you'd asked me when it came out what its chances were, I would have thought, yeah, it could sweep in a way.
Right.
That's one of my favorite Tarantino films.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like the voters are pretty fickle, but did you read some of those articles coming out before the ceremony of, like, what some of the voters were saying their reasoning was for not voting for some of the movies?
Yeah.
And it just was the most, like, stick in the mud. It made me suddenly care about it. And I was just like, well, I had no idea that I couldn't wait for all these old fuckers to die. But now I can't wait. Like, because they're just, everything they said was awful. Everything they said about why they weren't voting for certain movies was like, I just didn't like how he really seemed to be trying too hard. He really seemed to be going for it, really wanted it. Like, talking about, I think, Adam Sandler. Or like, and then like Greta Gerwig, they said about Little Women that they didn't like having to figure out the timeline. They thought that it was overcomplicated. The movie didn't need to be so twisty.
Right.
And
right.
I will say that there were moments where that timeline kind of messed with me, but I don't know if that's not part of the structure of that movie that makes it cool, because we've seen Little Women before. It's been done before. This one
Sure.
was kind of made interesting by the non-linear thing. I think at least that was part of her approach. So yeah, if you don't like that, then maybe don't act like you like the movie, but don't act like the movie is bad because it was too complex for you. That just sounds so old. Yeah, just go away. Just it really drives me crazy that they don't have to watch the movies and they can just have these bizarre opinions.
Yeah, yeah. I also think that like people are very dismissive about the plot line of Jojo Rabbit. I mean, like I'd heard in a bunch of things like people kind of tweeting like a movie about Adolf Hitler. Why would I watch? You know, it's just like
Right.
fucking just look
absolutely.
it up, man. Like why are people so dismissive of? I don't know. So sometimes I'll think, man, American audiences are much more sophisticated than we lead on, and then I'll hear something like that, and I'm like, oh, maybe I get why things are marketed the way that they are.
Well, some people really complain about Jojo Rabbit having like a tin ear for the culture right now, and I think people don't like that it pays homage to this idea that we should spend any time telling the story of a sympathetic little boy who wants to be a Nazi. But I think Taika Waititi's job as like the kind of filmmaker that he is to do things that feel like he's pushing certain limits, or like he's at least doing something that people might not expect from him. Where he's coming from as an indigenous person of Jewish descent is not a place of thinking this is all a big joke.
Right.
I mean, I guess that is problematic or risky or experimental to say that he's going to make a movie right now that is, going to flat out have characters that we know are Nazis, but who we are led to feel compassion for, or we are led to think, oh, well, the Sam Rockwell Nazi, he's not the worst Nazi I've ever seen. He seems like an all right kind of Nazi. Some people don't want that. They don't want their real world mixed in with something kind of whimsical almost. And I don't really blame people for being put off by that. But I did love his win. And I think it's cool that he's another guy who now is like a household name. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's another person that everybody just wants to hug and smell.
Yeah, I think the Brad win, the Taika win, those were pretty exciting for sure for me.
Yeah, it's like all of our big time crushes are winning. This is a nice.
Yeah, they're like it's like giving some attention to them.
Did you see Taika talking about Apple keyboards?
Yeah.
The reason I love that is because I have developed like a shoulder thing that's turned into an elbow thing, and it sometimes is a wrist thing. And when he was saying that, it made me realize, oh my God, I am sitting at my desk with my hands in front of me in this weird way. Maybe Apple will widen their keyboards. I don't know how you could fix it, frankly. Like, not on a laptop anyway, but I guess the one that I have for my computer could be wider, and that would be more comfortable. I thought that was funny. They asked him a question. I don't think they thought he was going to go there. It was some question about writing, and he started talking about Apple needs to fix their keyboards.
What were some other wins that you were happy with?
I mean, I was happy to see Toy Story win, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like Toy Story, and I mean, I think for it to, again, be only the second sequel to win an animated, best animated feature, the other one being Toy Story 3, like it just kind of solidifies. I mean, no one's really questioning it, but it solidifies, how important those movies are. And I mean, as much as I loved How to Train Your Dragon 3, like that would have been a really fun upset for me, but I think also it's just seeing Toy Story win is just a special thing, because those movies mean a lot to a lot of people and to a generation.
Yeah.
And if that's the last one, I don't know if it will be, who knows, but I mean, it feels like it is maybe, but that was kind of like, because there was a lot of talk about like the two Netflix movies possibly upsetting it, the Klaus film and what, Lost My Body, I think it's called, which admittedly I've only seen Klaus, so I didn't see the other one, but I mean, I wouldn't have like been upset, but it was just kind of like a nice thing to be able to see that movie's relevance still there, and people voting, this is a voted award, so I mean the love for the franchise is still there, which is pretty exciting too.
Yeah, I like Laura Dern a lot, so I'm happy for her to have a big moment. She does seem to be in a moment now where everybody loves her too. It seems like there's a lot of people that are sort of like just they've done a certain amount of work, and I don't know if that is one of those sort of career Oscars that you get, but she does seem to be pretty savvy about what roles she takes, and she stays in the public eye a lot. She does a lot of stuff, so I liked seeing that.
Yeah, she's a great actress, man.
Yeah.
I'm always excited to see her on screen.
I was kind of excited. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but I was kind of excited to see Ford versus Ferrari get a little love because I feel like on a technical level, um, like editing wise, and I think it won like one of the sound categories. I think that's pretty like earned for that film. I actually really like that movie. So I was pretty happy to see that pick up something or some sort of. That was the interesting thing. I feel like one of the big takeaways, and you guys can let me know how you feel about this. It seems like even though Parasite really that was like the dominant force for the night. A film winning 4 awards. It just kind of let a lot of awards get spread out a little bit. Like a lot of different movies won awards, whether it was some of the lower end categories or the higher ones, like Renee Zellweger winning for Judy. I'm not a huge fan of that movie. I mean, she's really good in that movie, but it just seems like there's other performances that, probably should have been in that category. But just the fact that a different movie won, you know what I mean? Like you have Joker, you have, Little Women winning something. You have Joker. I mean, what's it called? Once Upon a Time. You have, a lot of different movies. Ford vs. Ferrari, 1917. Like you're talking about like upwards of a dozen different films winning, the above the line categories for the ceremony, which is, I think that's kind of cool, because people that had never heard some of these names announced on prior to this telecast, it's like, oh, let me find that movie, because even if it won something like editing or sound mixing, like there's something to really be said about, anybody taking an award home from this ceremony. So I really like that, actually, that there wasn't a movie this year that I feel like I was like banging the drum for that was nominated, like across the board. But it was cool at the end of the night to see a lot of different creators and filmmakers and actors, and to be able to get up there to talk about their craft or to talk about just winning, and their moment of acknowledgement. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting spread when you look at it, like that there are, and some of those acknowledgments are good. Like you would want, if that movie's going to get an award, you'd think, well, okay, Renee Zellweger's performance really should be the focal point of why that movie is in the conversation.
Right.
So I do think there were some appropriate wins.
Right.
What did you think of Joaquin and his speech? Like, I feel like that's another win that nobody begrudges, even though people were varied in their reaction to that movie. I think one thing everybody said is that he's acting his face off in that movie. So, like, you can't really take it away from him. But what did you think of his speech? I thought it was actually one of those moments where I'm like, I'm kind of glad I like it when people take a moment to say something that they want the world to hear.
I liked it. He's one of those people I genuinely believe he's uncomfortable with fame. Like his reaction to things for years has been very like, please don't celebrate me too much. It's about the art, less about me. And it's really interesting, man. He's been pretty consistent with the message for a really long time, and him kind of pushing diversity and understanding it was the right time. And it would be, I don't know. I think it has to come from a white dude.
Right.
Because that at this point, the adjustments that have kind of been made with the award show, it's weird, man. You could come into this award show this year and think, man, this is a pretty balanced thing, right? But, for years, it's not been balanced at all on any level. Any people of color really winning any big prestigious awards. And we had, Parasite win the way that it did, and even an international film winning on the level that it won is just, it is pretty insane. But it had to be said, and I'm glad it came from Joaquin.
Well, the only thing I heard, and I do think this is interesting because he kind of did he ran the whole gamut of humanity in his sort of speech, except for he didn't mention disabled people.
Yeah.
I do think that's like an unfortunate omission because I'm sure he would have included that if he had if he had thought to. But to me, talking about animal rights is sort of like, I think that's one of those little I don't think we've yet begun to deal with what humanity is going to suffer at some point because of either a dependence on meat or whatever may happen because of what we might find out about animals and their psychology that might make it even worse.
Right, right.
They did let him go on a really long time. I will say that it was a pretty.
They did.
It was. I almost was surprised it went on for that long. But I don't know. Did they not have the same adjustments in place for the playing people off? I wasn't really timing the speeches, but I didn't get the sense that people were getting played off quite as much as in the past.
I don't think anybody did.
I think they almost played off Parasite at the end, and they had him put the mic back up.
The light went out and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the mic went down into the stage.
That was nuts.
They turned the lights off and they started playing Patsy Cline, which is how you let people know it's time to leave the party.
No, I mean, I thought Joaquin's speech was really good. It kind of felt like it was kind of getting lost a little bit towards the end, like where he was going with it. But I mean, I'm all for, you have a moment, say what you want to say, even if, has nothing to do with your role or who had it. You've worked your career to win that moment and it's yours. So take it. I'm all about that. So, and there's a lot to be learned from what he said. So I like that. And I like him kind of even mentioning River at the end, which I thought was really nice.
That was nice.
And that's, you could, that really kind of, for a certain generation, that means something, a lot actually. Cause who knows what could have happened with River Phoenix and who he could have become. Little did anybody think that it'd be like his little brother that would be like the powerhouse that he is now. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I thought most of the acceptance speech. I thought Renee Zellweger's kind of went a little wild. I feel a lot of her speeches this award season have been a little a little weird. But I agree with Ronald. He definitely seems like he's kind of I don't know. He just seems so uncomfortable doing everything that has anything to do with these award shows, and I just think that he just gets up there and says what he wants to say, and whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter to him at all because he doesn't really care either way,
Right.
But I don't know. I kind of was getting at this a little earlier, talking about being excited for Parasite, but overall, did you think that the broadcast itself, the awards ceremony itself, was good or anything special, or did you enjoy the number of musical performances? Did you enjoy what did you guys think about the overall flow and just the production of the awards in general, outside of any wins or movie titles, just the production itself?
I think it was one of the better ones I've seen in a really long time, and I think that kind of has to do with the opening, which opened up the crowd a little more, seeing Janelle Monáe do her thing, and I enjoyed all the musical performances with the exception of Elton John. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if his singing voice is quite there anymore. I don't know. I felt a little weird about that. And random Eminem performance.
What was that?
Yeah, that was interesting.
What the hell was? What is that related to? What's the context? I was so confused.
I think it was just a surprise because when he was nominated and won an Oscar 17 or 18 years ago, he pretty famously wasn't there and he didn't attend and he didn't accept the award and he didn't perform the song, but he won.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was any kind of everything's good. Let's just, if you want to come and do it kind of thing. It still felt really random, and people have been talking about that, and you could tell a lot of people they were cutting to during the performance seemed a little confused, but I thought it was pretty cool, honestly. Having not being able to see the performance back when it won was kind of a bummer, and him not being there to accept the fucking Oscar was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cool, but that's definitely what it was for. Simply the fact that he never acknowledged it or got it or performed it or anything like that.
Right, right.
it kind of seems like once you've gotten an Oscar, you're kind of in the club, and they can bring you back in. It's like being on Saturday Night Live or something. You can pop in for a sketch if you want to, and people shouldn't be that weirded out by it. I mean, say what you will about the performance, or whether he's relevant anymore, or whatever people want to criticize about him. And I think that I saw a lot of shit being slung at him on social media, but I also saw a lot of people saying, "Oh wow, that was great." So I think he's just one of those guys who, like, some people are going to be happy to see him pop back up, and some people want to forget him, it seems. But the emphasis on music is one of the ways they get around having the central host figure who carries you through the evening. And I feel the same way I did last year. I just like to see the show a little bit different. It makes it a little bit more watchable. It's always a little long. It's always a little boring in spots.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I feel like it's weird because, like, they get away from the host and they kind of keep the flow going and, like, kind of mix it up with all these performances, or, like, even last year and this year opening with some sort of musical number. It's almost like, it's feeling more and more like the Grammys, and the Grammys are not a high-rated TV show. So, like, not that I didn't enjoy the musical numbers, and I get, like, that being the logic of, having them mixed in a little more frequently. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the music stuff. Like, I love the acknowledgement for the songs, but I don't know the additional performances and, like, or, performing the full song from the nominee or something like that. Like, I don't know that that's really what I think would be the solution. I feel like at a point during the ceremony, I kind of felt like the performances were, like, I was, like, disconnecting a little bit. I felt like maybe around, like, the Elton John performance or something like that, who I enjoy. But yeah, I just kind of was, like, checking out during a lot of these performances and, like, taking that opportunity to go get something from the kitchen or something. Like, I wasn't watching them actively like I was watching, the presentations or, like, some of the montages or whatever there was, otherwise. But I don't know. I kind of thought the ceremony was pretty good. Like, I just kind of felt like it felt long to me. They're long every year, but it's just, I don't know, something about this year, it did feel longer to me.
It's never been like what you would call a good television show.
Right.
The Elton John thing was another one of those career wins, because
sure.
That's not one of his best songs, and it was not a very good performance. But I mean, whatever. It was questionable. A musical bright spot for me was Cynthia Erivo.
Yeah, she's
got a great voice.
She sounded great, I thought. Yeah, she was incredible.
No, that's one of the things that stands out to me. She seems like another person who's kind of having a moment. She's arrived. People are starting to know her name too. So that's another great. That's like Bong Joon-ho and Taika Waititi and everybody. Those people that are sort of becoming iconic to people right now.
Right. The crazy thing about her, man, is, like, she's one win away from an EGOT.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's insane. God, it's wild. She's so talented.
Have you been watching The Outsider, Ronald?
No.
Okay, well, you ought to. I think.
I think I'm, like, sick of. I think I get into this, like, kid getting killed thing. I'm like, I can't do this again. I need to take a break. I feel like I watched a lot of those, and I was like,
it has less to do with that particular thing than you might think. It's got, like, a web of weird shit that spirals out. Like, that's definitely there, but, like, that's not the full extent of it. It's but yes, if you don't want any of that, you definitely should avoid it, because it's there.
yeah.
But you know what I mean, Steve? It's like they don't really dwell on that. They talk about it and it's gruesome, but they don't. That's not like every week you're seeing pictures of chewed up kids or anything.
Right? No. Yeah, it's pretty brief, but I mean, it's kind of shadow. It's that opening episode's shadow is kind of cast over the entire series. But yeah, it moves on from that pretty quickly. I don't know. Anything else from anything that you guys want to talk about with the Oscars? Or
I mean, how did you feel the sort of like the comedy bits, the presenters? Was there anything that really hit a wrong note for you, or that you liked about the that part of it?
I mean, I really liked. Every year I like anything that Maya Rudolph has anything to do with at these award shows, and I thought her and Kristen Wiig's bit was great. I liked the opening thing with Steve Martin and Chris Rock. The Will Ferrell, Julia Louis-Dreyfus thing was a little stale to me.
Yeah, it fell flat.
Yeah, it kind of didn't. Especially after Maya and Kristen Wiig's bit, like, was way better.
Yeah. Definitely.
It was kind of like, oh, they're funny too, right? And I was like, maybe not so much, not with this bit at
Yeah.
least.
Well, we know they're great and we love them.
Right.
I can think of times when funny people have come out and had just a really poor bit to sell, and that kind of felt like that. Stale's the right word, I think.
Yeah. But I don't know. Those are the ones that kind of stood out, like comedy wise. I mean, for me at least. What about you guys, Ronald? Did anything stand out like presenters?
I mean, Zazie Beats. I mean, come on. Come on.
Forgetting the guy's name.
Yeah, and also being amazing.
Well, that helps. That helps you overlook her nerve, I guess. Her nerves.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
She is, man.
I almost think they could just run montages all night and then just pop up with an award and then run montages, because everyone loves montages, right? We all love those.
Yeah, for sure. I got to tell you, it was like one of the first awards. I think it was like right for Best Supporting Actor. I had a mild heart attack when they were like, they go through, they have the presenter come out. They say, hey, blah, 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 blah. This is the nominees for Best Supporting Actor in a Major Motion Picture or whatever. And they do this like whole montage demo reel of like the actor, and it shows like their name, the movie. So when they come out of that, and then the presenters then proceed to read the nominees' names out loud again.
That drives me crazy.
I looked away from the TV for like a second to like go pick something up in the corner of the room, and this is Brad's category, obviously, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna get it. I'm so excited. And I'm bent down to get something, and they read Tom Hanks, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then everybody, like Lauren and Aaron, are laughing at me because like it was just the nominee list again. But to me, these bigger categories were like, you're saying like, here are the nominees for Best Supporting Actor, and it shows a reel and it shows their name, and then you come out of it and say the nominees again. It was like so weird that in those major categories, like where they had the montages of clips, that they did that. And I don't know, man, like that right off the jump threw me for a loop. And it happened like 2 more times in some of the acting categories. It just like, I forgot that they did that. And once again, I was like, what? Whoever, like, won Best Actor, what? And I was like, oh, they're just reading the names again. Never mind. Like, that was kind of weird.
It'd be great if you really overreacted and like punched a hole in the wall or knocked the table over or something, Oh, wait, no? Oh, gosh. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I've already covered that hole up with Spackle, so we're cool.
Brad could probably hop up there and spackle the wall for you. Take his shirt off.
Yeah, he could. I will hire Brad any day, and I will be sure not to hire the people that you worked with for your basement.
Don't. Hire like a guy who can parkour up to the roof.
If you learn one thing from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's like that should be your first qualifier if you're a home contractor. It's crazy. I mean, the year's over, man. I mean, for better, from in most opinion, I mean, like it's like on to the next year. I mean, granted, we haven't done the Schmovie Awards, which is the real end of the year, but
do you think it should be a summertime awards show like the MTV Movie Awards?
I don't know. Maybe we do it like when in the worst time of the year and just kind of like start a trend. So then everybody's going to start doing their award shows at that time.
We have it in November when we haven't seen like any of the any prestige movies of the year yet.
When we completely exclude everything that will be nominated at the Oscars. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that like we talk about it every year and like we all get so excited. I just go nuts for all the awards talk and everything, and it's like it's just over, and it's just over. It's like on to the movies that come out every week now for the next couple months, where maybe we'll get like a couple decent movies, but you wait till April for some of the big guns to come out, the big summer movies. But hopefully we between now and then we have a couple exciting movies to talk about, and maybe there'll even be a couple that kind of stand the test of the year and end up on our lists for next year, or maybe even can be president next year's Academy Awards.
Yeah, have you guys seen anything good lately? Anything new?
No.
Oh, me either.
I saw something not new. I saw Ready or Not finally, and I really liked it, so that was good.
You just saw it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just saw that, and I also
man.
just started watching Castle Rock on Hulu, and that's pretty good. So I'm having fun with that stuff, but I'm not watching anything new. I want to go see Birds of Prey. I feel bad that it's doing badly. I always hate that when a movie is kind of tanking not tanking, but underperforming, and I am unable to go see it because I fully am interested in that, and I've heard nothing but like at least semi-positive things. Some people are really loving it, and some people are just saying, "Oh, it was too much for me," but it had some cool elements. So no. And I think that whole thing about the title being changed is crazy. I guess that's worth mentioning. Like, that's a pretty rare thing for it to happen in its theatrical run. You know, like Edge of Tomorrow, or was that the name of it? That got changed to Live, Die, Repeat, and was also called something else. It got changed when it got released on home video, right? But not while it was in the theater.
Right.
Yeah. And then All You Need Is Kill was the name of the script, right? So that's another better title.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great movie.
It is.
I love that.
Are they still doing a sequel to that? Is that still coming?
I think it is. Yeah, I mean, last I heard, it was happening. But yeah, it is interesting. Like, I haven't seen Birds of Prey yet, but I mean, from the jump, like the marketing for that movie, I mean, the whole rollout of that movie's been so weird. Like, even going with that title to begin with, I think it was a big mistake. And not that it can make or break a film's performance, but I mean, when you don't have, I don't know, like you don't have the property or the groundwork to like possibly launch a Harley Quinn standalone movie, like why would you consciously decide on a title that has 74 syllables in it, and most people don't even get to the end of it where it actually says the name Harley Quinn. You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird that would even be a decision that someone would say yes to, like, let alone Margot Robbie, who's like a driving force behind this movie and this franchise, and like her production company is behind this movie, and you know, she's all about this character, and you know, and I'm all about it too. Like, I really liked her as Harley Quinn. I like that character in Suicide Squad. It's like one of the only things I enjoyed about that movie. But it was just so weird to me that they named that movie, or named this film what it was at release, and you know what they changed it to this week. I mean, it's silly, but it makes so much more sense, you know. And if the marketing had that in it, I think this movie would have performed better for sure. Mm-hmm. It's just weird.
No, it's weird when movies are titled poorly, like Birds of Prey and Doctor Sleep. When you can kind of like point to a movie's performance and go, you know what? I think if people had been clearer on what this was trying to be, they might have been more interested. Right. And you can't say that's actually what makes or breaks it. But when something underperforms, you certainly, I think, can look at a weird name or a muddled marketing campaign and go like, well, guys, who's getting fired?
Yeah.
No, totally. I mean, you know, you have a Birds of Prey television series that was like what, on like WB or something a few years back and failed. So, okay, let's take the one great property from Suicide Squad, spin it off, put her in the movie, put her on the poster, but not put her name in the title, or at least the portion of the title that's going to be on every poster and that everybody's going to see when they pull the movie up in their ticketing app, or like when they're looking for a trailer. Like, that just seems like such a weird thing that they would like, not that they would have Birds of Prey in this film, because that seems pretty logical from what I've heard about what they intend to do with the franchise if it continues. That's actually pretty smart and a good idea. But to call it something where, you know, this untested, and I'm even you make a claim that like it failed on TV, you know, to have a Birds of Prey property, like to put that as the title. And, you know, just kind of she's buried at the end of the title, or the subtitle, or whatever you call that. Like, that's just a weird thing to me. And for all the marketing to be revolving around that, and to not really be all about Harley Quinn, who is the reason you're making this film. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's just odd. I mean, it helps that the movie didn't have a huge budget. Like, I think internationally it's already made its budget back, but there's a lot of money that goes in to P&A that, you know, may not be recovered. This movie may end up being a loss. I don't know. But that's crazy if it is, because that just seemed like a no-brainer to make this movie and to have it be, you know, one of these, you know, late winter hits that is a reason to just print money, you know, for the studio.
You could call it Harley Quinn : Birds of Prey, couldn't you? If you have to do that, like,
yeah.
But I mean, I also think you do Harley Quinn, and it's just like the Birds of Prey are formed in this, and then you do another movie. Now people know who all the other characters are. They see the poster with everybody on it. They don't care that it doesn't say Harley Quinn, because they know who Huntress or whoever else is in this movie, you know, is, because it seems like a good cast, and it seems like DC has kind of turned a corner with that tonal problem they were having, and they're making these movies that can be their own thing. But I find it a little strange that anyone who really wants to see the movie would have somehow missed what it was called. But also, I wonder if people were just not as interested in that movie based on the way it was being marketed or not. I always assumed there was this huge, like, audience that was ready for that movie, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so
I mean, at least in the sense that like it wasn't like a surefire thing. I think that people that wanted to see a Harley Quinn movie just off the jump maybe went and saw it. But I think that
Right.
Also coming off Suicide Squad, like a lot of people don't like that movie, and I think a big part of the marketing, especially long lead marketing, like they pretty famously like missed a lot of the conventions. They weren't at Comic-Con last year. They didn't premiere anything for the movie until the Comic-Con in Brazil, and they missed a lot of opportunities to kind of get the word out about this movie in early phases of their marketing, and let alone when they actually launched the marketing. I think the marketing being geared around this Birds of Prey brand, it was just like I think it was just a miss. I mean, that decision from the jump of what to call the movie is one thing, and that's a mistake, I think. But even the marketing, the titles, the SEO, even on the web, on the internet, like all of this stuff feeds into people's awareness. Mainly people that maybe didn't know they wanted to see a Harley Quinn movie. They could have found this movie a different way, or found Margot Robbie if they're fans of her, or found any of the other actresses or actors in this movie. But I just think that there's some poor decision making in the marketing for the movie that I think hurt the movie to the point that I don't know that changing the title is going to help it. Maybe it will if it actually has legs. Because like you said, John, like I've heard good things about it. Like it's got like a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Like its cinema score is like a B+. Its post track is like I think an 8 out of 10 or something like that. Like it's got a lot of positive tracking out of the theater, but the box office just was not there. So if it's got legs and word of mouth, and people are helping tell friends and family and word of mouth about this Harley Quinn movie, not a Birds of Prey movie, and then they've retitled it to match that word of mouth, it's possible that will help it or help its legs. But it's kind of a bummer because I love her and I love what she's doing with the production company, and I like her character. I like this character with her. But yeah, I still need to check it out. I'm anxious to see it. Hopefully I'll get to see it maybe the week after we get back from vacation, but maybe it'll be a different title by then. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. I guess I had sort of forgotten the whole Suicide Squad element of how people generally would be thinking, why would I go see a sequel to a movie I didn't like? And that maybe being one of the more liked things of a movie that people sort of didn't like.
Right.
It's not enough to just give you this whiff of this character and say, aren't you glad she's back? So, even though she seems to be in that neighborhood of kind of like a Deadpool, like sort of Bugs Bunny-ish character who's like at an angle to the world that you're used to. But I had sort of forgotten that Suicide Squad might be dampening the hopes for this movie. If it seems like more of that, maybe some people didn't want to see it just sight unseen. But who knows? Maybe it'll kind of live on in some form, because I do think word of mouth helps a movie like that eventually, find people to watch it, whether it can kind of save its performance enough to lead to whatever success level they need it to have for this to be what maybe they were intending, which I'm sure was meant to kind of kick off a bunch of movies. But no, she is great. And I guess that is one reason why I would hope for that movie to succeed, is just because I like that it's kind of her baby.
For sure. Yeah, man, that's all. I haven't seen much this in theaters this year so far. I think we mentioned it. I really liked Bad Boys for Life. And I've watched like some streaming movies, that have been digital releases on Netflix and whatnot. But yeah, nothing really that I've seen too much of in theaters. I do still want to try to catch a couple movies before they leave theaters. I've already missed some that didn't perform well that are already out of theaters, which I'm bummed about. But hopefully I can catch a couple of them once we get back from vacation. But the year is definitely off to a slow start for me, for me personally.
Ronald, is there anything you're about to go see or that you want to go see, or you don't see any movies in your future?
This weekend I'm probably going to see The Photograph, Issa Rae's movie, and Birds of Prey. Those are my two that I'm going to look out for.
Nice. Have to let us know what you think. You guys got anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
I think that's it for me. Like I said, I'm watching Castle Rock, and I'm also we kind of finally started this Lost rewatch we've been talking about for a while. So I just watched the first episode of Lost, and man, that's fucking good.
Oh man, that pilot
It's
it's like flawless, man. It's so good.
Like knowing what happens with the characters too, they set up things that certain characters have moments and lines that they have that actually play into stuff those characters deal with over the course of their arc.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that is like retroactively made to fit that. But seeing who's the cast like emerge from that first episode is really kind of cool. Like at the end, you get when they're all looking at the forest and they're hearing the noise of the smoke monster. The group that's standing there is like the assembled group of people that you've kind of spotted throughout the episode. It's just a cool moment because you go, oh yeah, that's pretty much everybody right there. And the only person that's not there is Sawyer. We've seen him, but he's kind of just off by himself. So I'd forgotten how long it takes him to become like part of the group, but that also was kind of fun. So no, I'm sure I'll get to the parts where it's like, this is fallen off, and some of those flashbacks started to get a little tiresome after a while. But once they realized they were ending the show and they shifted into like a different gear, I think that Lost, stayed pretty strong for me all the way through.
Definitely.
So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, that's all TV. That's all sitting at home. I need to go see something on the big screen. I guess I'll see Birds of Prey soon. I still need to see 1917 as well. So I'm there's a few big ones that I got to catch, but I don't know when.
Cool. Well, I think that'll be it for this episode. You can find us at movieshmovie.com, facebook.com/movieschmovie. And, if you subscribe or whatever platform you subscribe from for this podcast, if you're listening right now, especially if it's Apple Podcasts, if you can leave a review or some sort of star rating, we'd appreciate it. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with a new episode. And we'll try to stick to these every 2-week plan that we kind of committed to at the beginning of the year, and hopefully we can keep that going through the year.
It's going to be our best year ever. I'm calling it now.
Best year ever. Well, if you guys are good, let's just say, as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.